A roast dinner in 1953 cost less than 3 shillings, yet the families who sat down to eat it would swear the food tasted richer than anything you can buy at Tesco today. Strange, when rationing was still being phased out, fridges were a luxury, and most children had never even seen a banana. We're counting down 25 British poverty meals that somehow tasted better than the overpriced ready meals filling our trolleys now. Cheap cuts, stale crusts, and Sunday leftovers stretched into suppers that fed whole generations. Number 14 relied on an ingredient that has been quietly pushed out of modern kitchens. And number 1 will surprise nobody who grew up north of the Watford Gap. Let's begin the countdown with number 25. Number 25, sugar sandwiches anchored the British childhood when the biscuit tin was empty and payday was still 3 days off. Mothers spread a layer of margarine across 2 doorstep slices of mother's pride, then sprinkled a teaspoon of granulated sugar across the surface, pressed the top slice down, and handed it over without ceremony. By the late 1950s, a £2 loaf cost just under a shilling and a bag of sugar tuppence, making a sandwich that fed a hungry child for less than a penny. Children bit through that soft white bread to the gritty crunch of sugar beneath, the sweetness shocking against the salt of the margarine, and ran back out into the street without complaint. It was a snack born of nothing, yet today's processed cereal bars cost £3 and somehow managed to taste of less. Number 24. Dripping toast brought the memory of Sunday's roast back to the breakfast table every Monday morning. Fathers came down to a thick slice of bread, toasted under the grill until the edges crisped, then smeared with the cold beef dripping saved from the weekend joint. Underneath the pale fat lay the prize, a layer of dark amber jelly that carried every drop of flavor from the roasting tin. A pinch of salt, a crack of pepper, and the toast went down with a mug of strong tea before the shift at the factory. By 1955, a jar of saved dripping cost nothing because it was a byproduct, yet it tasted of beef in a way that no modern butter ever has. Cardiologists later condemned it. Working men knew better. Number 23. Pobs was the supper given to children when nothing else could be spared, and somehow it has lingered in memory as one of the most comforting meals ever served. Mothers tore stale bread into rough chunks, dropped them into a deep bowl, and poured hot, full-fat milk over the lot, finishing with a spoonful of sugar and a grating of nutmeg. The bread swelled and softened, soaking up the milk until the whole bowl turned pale gold and steaming. Children ate it with a tablespoon, blowing on each mouthful, the sweetness curling through the kitchen as bedtime approached. A loaf gone hard by Friday became Saturday's supper for the youngest in the house. Today's overnight oats cost £5 in cafes and never come close to that simple, milky warmth. Number 22. Spam fritters were the proudest invention of the wartime British kitchen, a dish that refused to die when rationing ended. Thick slices of tinned spam were dipped in a simple flour and water batter, then dropped into a pan of hot lard until the coating turned gold and the meat inside softened and pulled away from the crust. Served with mashed potato and a slick of brown sauce, it was the Friday tea that no child complained about. By 1956, a tin of spam cost 1 shilling and 3p and stretched to 4 fritters, feeding a family for under a tanner a head. School canteens carried the dish through the 70s before health campaigns shamed it off the menu. Modern processed meats have 10 times the additives and none of the honest, salty satisfaction. Number 21. Beans on toast is still served today, but the version your nan made bears no resemblance to the modern sad triangle on a plate. The bread was cut thick from a fresh tin loaf, toasted until properly dark, then buttered while still hot, so the fat soaked into the crumb. The beans were Heinz, never anything else, heated slowly in a small pan with a knob of butter stirred through until they turned glossy and rich. Tipped over the toast and dusted with white pepper, the dish cost about 4p per portion in 1958 and silenced any hungry child within minutes. Modern beans on toast comes from the microwave on cold bread that bends like cardboard. That butter under the toast was the entire secret, and we lost it. Number 20. Welsh rarebit was a poor man's supper that tasted like something from a hotel dining room. Strong cheddar was grated into a small pan, then melted with a splash of stout, a teaspoon of English mustard, a shake of Worcestershire sauce, and a single egg yolk stirred through to bind it. The hot, savory mixture was spooned thickly onto toast and slid under the grill until the surface bubbled and blistered into golden craters. By the early 1960s, a quarter-pound of mousetrap cheese cost 9p and made tea for 4, and the smell of mustard and grilled cheese drifted out of every back kitchen in Cardiff and Newport on a Tuesday night. Modern cheese on toast skips the stout, skips the mustard, and tastes of nothing but plastic. Number 19. Pilchards on toast brought the taste of the Cornish coast into kitchens hundreds of miles from the sea. Tinned pilchards in tomato sauce were tipped into a bowl, mashed roughly with a fork until the bones disappeared into the soft pink flesh, then piled high onto thick buttered toast and finished with a grind of black pepper. A tin cost about 8p in 1955 and fed 2 adults handsomely, the rich tomato gravy soaking into the bread underneath. Working men ate it on Saturday afternoons before the football, the oily fish carrying enough calories to see them through a freezing terrace at 3 o'clock. Modern tinned fish costs £3 and goes into salads, but a proper pilchard sandwich on a winter day had a depth no posh tuna niçoise has ever managed. Number 18. Tomato soup with bread was the meal that warmed a generation through every cold snap, and it owed its glory to one tin and one trick. The soup, always Heinz, was poured into a small saucepan and heated slowly with a tablespoon of milk stirred through to turn the color from bright red to a softer, creamier orange. The bowl arrived at the table with a thick slice of buttered white bread sitting alongside, ready to be torn and dunked until the crust softened into the soup. A tin cost 6p in 1957 and fed 2 children for lunch with change for the bus. The dipping ritual mattered as much as the soup itself. Modern artisan tomato soup costs £5 a pot and never tastes as good as that simple tin with milk. Number 17. Egg and chips ruled the working-class supper table from Land's End to John O'Groats. A pan of dripping bubbled on the hob, thick-cut potatoes lowered in until they crackled and turned golden, then drained on yesterday's newspaper, while the egg fried in the same fat with the white going crisp and lacy at the edges. The plate landed on the table piled high, with a bottle of HP sauce, a slice of buttered bread, and a mug of tea so strong it could stand a spoon. By 1959, a portion cost about 9p to make at home, and silenced any complaint from a husband home from a 10-hour shift. Modern oven chips cooked in vegetable oil are an embarrassment compared to that proper beef fat fry, and we all know it. Number 16. Bubble and Squeak turned Monday into a feast through nothing but cold leftovers and a hot pan. Mashed potato from Sunday's dinner was mixed with shredded cabbage, sometimes with a stray carrot or parsnip, and pressed into a thick patty in a pan of hot dripping. The hiss and crackle as it hit the fat gave the dish its name. Mothers waited patiently for the underside to turn dark gold before flipping it over, the edges shattering into crisp ribbons that children fought over. By 1953, the dish appeared in 7 out of 10 British kitchens every Monday, costing nothing because every ingredient was rescued from the weekend. Modern Bubble and Squeak comes pre-packed for £4 and tastes of damp paper. That crisp brown crust was the whole point, and frozen versions can't manage it. Number 15. Cornflake cakes were the birthday party staple that no child has ever forgotten. A bar of cooking chocolate, the cheap kind that cost about 5p, was melted slowly over a pan of simmering water, with a spoonful of golden syrup stirred through until glossy. Cornflakes were tipped in by the handful, folded gently so the flakes stayed whole, then spooned into paper cases and left on the windowsill to set hard. By 1962, every primary school cookery class produced trays of them for the summer fete, sold for 2p each to raise funds for the new climbing frame. The crunch when you bit through that chocolate shell into the sweet, crackling cornflakes underneath was childhood itself. Modern chocolate cereal bars are packed with 17 ingredients and taste of regret. Number 14. Stew and dumplings stands as the meal that built post-war Britain, and the secret was an ingredient that has been quietly disappearing from kitchens since the 1990s, proper beef suet. Mothers shredded the hard white fat from a fresh joint, rubbed it into self-raising flour with their fingertips, added a pinch of salt and just enough cold water to form a sticky dough, then dropped spoonfuls onto a bubbling pot of beef and root vegetables. The dumplings swelled as they cooked, drinking up the savory broth, the tops staying pale and puffy, while the bottoms turned dark with gravy. A pound of shin beef cost 1 3p in 1954, and the suet came free from the butcher. The supermarket vegetable suet sold today is a soft, tasteless imitation. The real version made stew taste of beef twice over. Number 13. Toad in the Hole turned a half-pound of cheap sausages into a meal that could feed a family of 6 and leave them arguing over the corner pieces. Mothers mixed flour, eggs, milk, and a pinch of salt into a smooth batter and rested it for an hour while heating a roasting tin with a generous spoonful of lard inside. The sausages were browned in the smoking fat first, then the batter was poured around them and the whole tin slid into a fierce oven. By 1962, sausages cost about 1 shilling and 8p a pound, and the batter ingredients added up to about 4p, feeding 6 for less than 2 and 6. Crisp golden walls rising up around those sausages, drowned in onion gravy, made supermarket frozen versions look like the sad ghosts they are. Number 12. Heart casserole sounds horrifying to a modern shopper, but for working-class families it was the cheapest way to put proper meat on the table. Lamb or pig hearts cost about 9p each at the butcher's in 1955, big enough to feed 4 when stuffed and slow-cooked properly. Mothers trimmed away the valves, stuffed the hollow with breadcrumbs, sage, onion, and a beaten egg, sewed it shut with cooking string, and braised it for 3 hours in a deep pot of onion gravy. The meat emerged so tender it sliced like a Sunday roast, the herby stuffing soaking up every drop of the dark, glossy sauce. Children ate it without ever asking what it was. Modern shoppers turned their noses up, but a properly cooked heart had a depth of flavor no supermarket sirloin can match. Number 11. Liver and onions was the weekly iron injection for every working-class family in Britain, served whether the children wanted it or not. Lamb's liver, sold at the butcher's for 4p a quarter in 1957, was sliced thin and dusted lightly with seasoned flour, then dropped into a pan of hot dripping with a heap of soft onions cooking slowly alongside. The trick was speed. Liver in the pan for more than 90 seconds a side turned grey and bitter, but when kept just pink in the middle, it was meltingly tender and rich. Served on a bed of those sweet, caramelized onions with mashed potato and a flood of thick gravy, it became the meal nobody admitted to loving. Modern liver comes shrink-wrapped, already bitter, and most cooks have lost the timing. Done properly, it was magnificent. Number 10. Tripe and onions divided the British table more sharply than any other dish, but those who grew up with it remember the flavor with quiet reverence. Manchester tripe shops sold pale, honeycombed slabs of cleaned cow stomach for 4p a pound in 1952, and housewives queued before opening time on a Friday morning. The tripe was simmered for 2 hours in a pot of milk with sliced onions, a bay leaf, and a generous knob of butter, then finished with a thickened white sauce and a heavy grind of black pepper. The texture was soft and yielding, the flavor sweet and almost dairy-like, nothing like the offal nightmare its reputation suggests. By 1990, the tripe shops had vanished, and with them went a flavor that supermarket beef will never replicate. Number 9. Faggots and peas crowned the Black Country supper table and gave Wolverhampton, Walsall and Dudley a dish they still argue about today. Butchers minced pig's liver, heart and belly with breadcrumbs, sage, onion, and a generous pinch of nutmeg, shaped the mixture into balls the size of cricket balls, wrapped each one in caul fat, and baked them in trays until the tops turned dark and crackling. Served with mushy peas, mashed potato, and a small lake of dark onion gravy. The meal cost about £1 per person in 1960. Children fought over the crispiest faggot in the dish, and fathers reached for a second helping without asking. Modern shrink-wrapped supermarket faggots have a quarter of the flavor and twice the price. The real ones tasted of the kitchen they were born in. Number 8. Boiled bacon and cabbage filled the midweek table and stretched a single joint into meals that lasted until Friday. The bacon, usually a piece of shoulder or collar, was soaked overnight in cold water to draw out the salt, then simmered for 2 hours with carrots, onions, and peppercorns. In the final 20 minutes, a whole cabbage was quartered and wedged around the joint, so the leaves cooked in the smoky bacon liquor, turning soft and infused with pork flavor. A 2-pound bacon joint cost about 2 shillings and 6pence in 1954 and fed a family of 5 with cold slices left over for sandwiches. Modern supermarket bacon is wet, lean, and tastes of brine. That proper smoked joint, simmered slowly with cabbage drinking up the liquor, was honest food at its best. Number 7. Mince and tatties was the Scottish supper that anchored every kitchen from Aberdeen to Ayr. Beef mince was browned slowly in a heavy pan with chopped onions and a single grated carrot, then simmered with a pint of beef stock, a tablespoon of HP sauce, and a thick paste of flour and water to bring the gravy together. Served beside a mound of floury mashed potato with the gravy pooling in the crater, it was the dinner that needed no explanation. By 1960, a pound of mince cost 1 and 9pence and made tea for 4 with skirly or dough balls on the side. Children mashed the potato into the gravy with the back of a fork. Modern lean mince has all the fat removed, and with it, all the flavor. The original needed that fat to taste of anything at all. Number 6. Peas pudding clung to the northeast with the same stubborn pride as the shipyards and the pit villages. Yellow split peas were soaked overnight, tied in a muslin cloth, and boiled for 3 hours alongside the ham joint until they collapsed into a thick, buttery paste. The cloth was lifted out, the peas tipped into a bowl with a knob of butter, a pinch of salt and a crack of pepper, then mashed smooth and served in hot slices alongside the ham. In 1962, Newcastle market stalls sold it by the ladleful, scooped onto grease-proof paper for workers heading home from the shift. The earthy, golden sweetness of those peas, carrying the smoke of the ham they cooked beside, was unforgettable. Modern shop-bought peas pudding in plastic tubs is a faded ghost of the real thing. Number 5. Pea and ham soup was the meal that carried mining families through the long northeast winter, when wages ran thin and the wind cut through every coat. Dried green split peas were simmered for 4 hours with a ham bone saved from Sunday's joint, an onion, 2 carrots, and a bay leaf, the pot topped up with water as it reduced. By the end, the soup had turned a deep, mossy green and stood so thick that a wooden spoon could be left upright in the middle of it. Served with thick hunks of bread for dunking, the meal cost about 3d a head in 1958 and stuck to the ribs of a man heading underground at 6 in the morning. Modern packet versions are watery and metallic. The original carried the smoky soul of the ham bone all the way through. Number 4, rabbit stew was the poor man's chicken. Long before the supermarkets made real chicken affordable. A whole rabbit, jointed by the butcher for 6d in 1953, was browned in dripping with onions and bacon scraps, then simmered for 2 hours in cider or weak stock with carrots, swede, and a sprig of thyme. The meat slipped from the bone in long, pale flakes, sweeter than chicken and richer than pork, while the gravy thickened into something glossy and deeply savory. Children fished for the legs first, fathers claimed the saddle, and mothers used the leftover broth for soup the next day. A rabbit fed 6 people handsomely. Modern shoppers won't touch rabbit, and supermarket chicken raised in 8 weeks tastes of nothing in comparison. We traded depth for convenience and called it progress. Number 3. Oxtail stew stands as proof that the cheapest cut of meat on the butcher's block was capable of producing the most luxurious dinner of the week. The bony, gnarled segments cost about 9d a pound in 1955 because nobody else wanted them, but 6 hours in a low oven with onions, carrots, a glass of stout, and a bay leaf transformed them into something miraculous. The meat fell from the bone in dark, glossy ribbons, while the natural gelatin in the joints thickened the gravy into something that coated the spoon and clung to the lips. Served over mashed potato with a scattering of parsley, it was a Sunday supper for the price of a weeknight. Modern restaurants now charge 20 quid for an oxtail dish. Your grandmother made it for next to nothing and made it better. Number 2. Cottage pie ruled the post-roast supper from Tuesday onwards, turning the cold remnants of Sunday's beef joint into a dish that fed the family twice over. The leftover meat was minced through the hand grinder fixed to the kitchen table, browned with onions and a splash of leftover gravy, thickened with a spoonful of flour, and finished with a shake of Worcestershire sauce. The mixture went into a pie dish, topped with a thick blanket of mashed potato, scored with the tines of a fork, and baked until the peaks turned dark gold and the gravy bubbled up around the edges. By 1956, the dish cost less than a shilling to assemble and fed 5 with seconds. Modern supermarket cottage pies have watery filling and reconstituted mash. The proper version, made with the bones of Sunday, tasted twice as good as the original roast. Number 1. Lancashire hot pot crowns this list as the dish that defined the working north, and somehow tasted better than every fancy meal that came after it. Mutton chops, the cheaper, fattier cousin of lamb, at 1 and 8d a pound in 1952, were layered in a deep earthenware pot with sliced onions, a handful of black pudding for some, and a topping of sliced potatoes overlapping like roof tiles. A pint of stock was poured down the side, a knob of dripping placed on top, and the pot slid into the oven for 4 hours at a low heat. The potatoes on top crisped into dark, golden discs, while the layers underneath softened into something so rich the meat dissolved at the touch of a fork. The juices below carried the flavor of mutton, onion, and potato all at once, deeper than any modern stew could ever manage. In Lancashire, it was said you could smell a good hot pot 3 doors down, drifting through the back alley as the men returned from the mill. Modern oven-ready versions are watery, lean, and finished in 40 minutes. The original needed 4 hours, 3p worth of mutton, and a mother who knew exactly when the top layer had earned its crust. That patience was the recipe, and we have lost it. These were not just suppers. They were proof that flavor costs nothing when you know what you are doing. Try one this week. The dripping toast, the proper bubble and squeak, the oxtail simmered slowly on a Sunday afternoon. And tell me your nan was wrong. She knew something we forgot, and the food on our supermarket shelves has been getting worse ever since. Which one did your family make? Tell me in the comments.